All right, so welcome everybody. It's I wish I could see you, but I can't. But I good to see you and the smiles on your faces. Interesting times at the moment, but really looking forward to this exciting and webinar with Ryan. But before I go there, I just want to say it's great to be in an environment with RPMA where we've got property managers who are willing to share the best practice and learn from one another. And it's really a great thing that we're sensing now, instead of actually having so-called professionals tell us what we should be doing, but people who've got skin in the game, and it's really exciting. This webinar is about winning the business without giving your price away. And one of the things I just want to say is that I'm finding is that you don't have to be in property management very long to actually realize that not all property managers are the same. And so the whole key of it is that you actually have to educate, and Ryan will help us with this webinar today to actually educate people that not all property managers are the same. And when they make a decision, because it's not the same, they don't have to just look at the price. They need to look at the other factors, and it's our job to educate them. So I'm wanting to welcome Ryan. Ryan is the Deputy Chairperson of RPMA. He's actually co-director of Property Scouts New Zealand, and he's got locations around New Zealand. So Ryan, I'm glad that you could make the time available and put the effort into this webinar for all of us, and we're ready to listen and learn.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me, David, and for that introduction. If you could just enable the screen sharing for me, that would be wonderful.
I could actually do that. Away you go.
Okay, let's give it a go. Right. Everyone should be able to see my screen now. And now I'm having a small technical difficulty, which is a bit of a pain. Okay, my screen has frozen. We'll just, David, could you please stop sharing of screen for a second?
Oh, okay. I don't think I can because you're the host.
Okay. Oh, it's just completely frozen on me. Oh, actually, it's just starting to wake up. Right, is my
okay. Well, hi.
And we also have a streaker. Okay, I think I should be able to get back on track.
All right. So yeah, it's just and just to everybody through the Ryan's presentation, please take the time. I forgot to mention. Please take the time to actually ask questions. Type some questions in the question and answer at the bottom of the screen. That would be really great. Yeah, Roger's saying that he can see a blank screen. So there we go. It should all be better now.
Okay, I think I'm up and running. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm ready to begin now. So the title of my webinar is How to Sign New Managements Even When Your Competitors Are Undercutting You. So welcome to this webinar put on by the RPMA. And thank you everyone for joining. I know all of us are really busy, so I appreciate you attending. And thanks for also allowing me to talk. This will be quite a short and sharp sort of a presentation. I'm not much of a person to waffle on and things like that. So I'll probably be done in about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'd love some, we'll sort of open it up to questions at the end if anyone is still awake at that stage. So as I say, this webinar is about how to sign new management even when your competitors are undercutting you. Now, I was thinking a little bit about that title, and if I had another go at it, it should really be called How to Sign New Managements at Full Fees, even when your competitor is undercutting you. Now, before we begin, it'd be nice if you guys use the chat box. I'd love to see where people are coming from around the country, find out how locked down you are, get a sense of where everyone's coming from. Now, if it sounds during this webinar like I'm reading it, I am reading it at certain parts. I probably should have arranged my webinar earlier, got it committed to memory, but I'm not in that position today. So before further ado, I'm going to give you an outline of what this webinar is going to cover. So I'm going to give you a bit of my background, just build on the introduction that David had. Then we're going to do an overview about the webinar. Then we're going to get into the meaty stuff. We're actually going to talk about the importance of getting decent fees and why, as individuals and as an industry, I think it is important to get decent fees from our clients. I'm a really details person, so I'm not just going to talk around the fringes. I'm actually going to get into the detail and actually talk about specific tactical ways that you guys can use out there in the real world to win business without discounting your fees. And when I say get into detail, I'm actually going to provide like actual things that you can say to your landlords when they're saying to you, oh, I've got another property manager that's offering a much cheaper deal than you. So I'm going to help you out with that stuff. Again, getting into the detail, we're going to show you a real life example, an example of me signing a new landlord a couple of months ago after they had been approached by another property manager at a significantly cheaper rate, and how I went around that. One of the things I did in that situation was actually present to her and educate her using a very simple Excel spreadsheet. So I've got a copy of that exact spreadsheet in the slides, which we'll get to towards the end of the presentation. Speaking of towards the end, we will have a bit of a summary and then we'll do our questions. So let's talk about me. I'm Ryan Weir. I'm the Deputy Chairperson of RPMA, and I'm very passionate about the RPMA, which I believe has a really bright future. At the young age of 19, I bought my first rental property, and that was down in Dunedin. I worked in banking for 10 years. I started out as a teller part-time, which was great because I was a surfer back then. So I was surfing and doing teller work at the bank. At the end of my career at the bank, I ended up doing double-digit million-dollar loans for large businesses in Auckland. So I started at the very bottom and ended up doing some pretty cool stuff, and I learned a lot. Now, after that chapter closed, I started a boutique property management business in Auckland, and that was back in 2014. And that property management business grew to be quite a reputable property management company in Auckland. We were managing hundreds of rental properties. Now, that property management business that I just spoke about, we had very high financial KPIs, which made it quite valuable. So the financial KPIs that I'm referring to on a rent roll are average weighted management fee. So that's across the whole entire rent roll. So for us, it was over 8% plus GST. So that's quite strong by Auckland standards. In Auckland, it starts to dip a little bit, but that was quite a strong one. The other really strong KPI we had was our secondary income stream. So what we're talking about there is it means you're getting good fees from like routine inspections and admin fees. Now, in early 2020, just when the lockdown hit actually, I began my next chapter. I sold my property management business in Auckland and I joined my father, Milton Weir, as a co-director of Property Scouts New Zealand. So Property Scouts has been around for about 20 years and we are specialised property managers. We've got 16 amazingly talented franchises throughout New Zealand and even one in Queensland, Australia. At Property Scouts, we're pretty proud of the fact that we've had none of our franchises fail and they've all been successful to varying degrees. Now, on a bit of a personal note, recently I made quite a bad personal decision for myself during the lockdown. Because there was no haircuts going around, I actually had my fiance rearrange my hairstyle. So I no longer look like that man on your screen. During the lockdown, I've looked more like the man on your screen right now. So basically, the very first point of my webinar is, if you want to get good clients at full fees, you need to make sure that you're presentable and you don't look like that person on your screen. Right, let's get into it. Has this ever happened to you? You get in touch with a new landlord, maybe it was a referral. You do an appraisal. You do a great successful pitch about all the wonderful things you're going to do as their property manager. You walk them through your management agreement and you wait to hear back from them, hopefully with a signature on that management agreement. But then you get a dreaded phone call from the landlord. It's not to say they've gone somewhere else, but it's to say that another property manager has come into the fold and they're offering lower fees. It's pretty annoying. And the landlord is putting pressure on you to lower your fees as a result. So what do? Do you panic and lower your fees in an attempt to keep that business and sign that new management? Or do you hold your ground, but do you know how to prove you're worth full fees? I think some of us do discount our fees. It's something I used to do until I figured out the secret of getting full fees. So hopefully some of the tips I give you guys today may change this for you. So if you're in the habit of discounting your fees, make sure you do try and change this behavior, but you're probably already on the pathway of doing that because you're attending this webinar. Once you get better at winning clients at full fees, it does get easier and it does get to be second nature, but it won't happen until you start to try. So maybe you could even practice some of the tips I give you today with a colleague or in the mirror, whatever. It's much easier to practice in that environment before you try it with a client. So what if I told you that you don't have to discount your fees to win new landlords, even when a competitor is offering lower fees? You get to keep your fees at the way they are and still win the business. So that is basically what this webinar is all about and what I'm going to show you. So now I'd like to talk about why is it important that we get decent fees? Why don't we just discount our fees, waive our fees to get the clients on board? I mean, you could do that, but are we really about just getting clients at any costs and dropping our pants? So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about reasons to not discount your fees. So number one, if you are discounting your fees, it means you'll need to manage more properties to get the same income. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't sound like much fun. When you are in that scenario or that situation, it could affect the quality of your work because you're managing more properties. It could affect your work-life balance because you're spending all this time managing, running around, managing lots of properties. So yeah, it can have an adverse effect on your work-life balance. And that's because you just got a big portfolio. So point number two, if you're discounting your fees, it lowers the value of your business. This ties back to what I mentioned earlier about my old company. One of the financial KPIs for a rent roll is the average management fee and also the volume of your secondary income from other fees. So if you're discounting your fees and waiving fees, both of the financial KPIs that I just mentioned will suffer, and it lowers the value of your business. Right, point number three, if you're discounting your fees, it lowers your profitability. It's pretty simple, less income coming in because you're discounting your fees. It means that less goes to your bottom line and your accountant will be angry. When there's less profitability, that's less money that could be going into either your own pocket or money that could be reinvested back into your business on marketing or advertising or getting another staff member. And it's those things that actually propel your business forward and you get further growth out of those things. Now, point number four, the importance of fees. If you're discounting your fees, your business won't grow as quick. If you're overwhelmed and managing too many properties, it means that you don't have as much time to beat the pavement and go out there and meet with potential landlords, network, go to BNI, do cold calling, chase up leads, work on your CRM, all that stuff. It would go out the window basically, and then you're just going to plateau. So yeah, that's probably a really big one in this list. Now, final point number five, if you are discounting your fees, is it an equitable situation? So you're probably wondering what I mean by that. So if you're anything like me, when it comes to property management, you don't cut corners. So if a client is paying you a cheaper fee, you won't necessarily drop your service to match the rate. So the fee's down here and your service is still right up here. You constantly provide a high level of service no matter what the client is paying. So it creates a situation where a client is still getting the premium service of property management through you, but at a cheaper price. And is that really suitable? Or is that client winning at your expense? So basically, the way I see it, I think there's widespread discounting of property management fees across our industry. And when that is happening, it's impossible for those people to be doing a good job of property management because the sizes of the portfolios get so large and property managers can't do a good job. That's when mistakes happen. That's when service levels drop. And that's when you hear stories in the news and the whole industry gets a bad rap. So funnily enough, I believe that landlords are actually better off when they pay their property managers full fees and they're not getting discounts, because then the portfolio sizes don't get so big and they get the properties in those portfolios get looked after better. Right, so kind of in reverse of all the things I've just said, I'm going to tell you what the outcome of good fees are, just to really drum it home. So the outcomes of you getting full fees or good fees are you'll manage less properties for the same income. So you'll be happy. Another thing is you'll increase your profitability. Your accountant will be happy. Another reason is you'll increase the value of your business. Your wife or your husband will be happy. Another reason is you'll grow your business faster. Your bank manager will be happy. And your service that you provide is worth full fees. So personally, I feel that's a self-esteem thing. So it'll boost your self-esteem when you're getting full fees from your clients. Righto, we're going to get into the really meaty stuff. I promised you guys at the beginning of this webinar that we wouldn't just hang around the fridges and have a talk. I'm going to actually get into the tactics that I use to increase my chances of signing new clients at full fees. So, how do you win a new client at full fees when your competitor is offering discounts? Before I go into these tactics, I just want to have a quick chat about what I call a golden rule when you're in a competitive situation. So I'm going to put it to you guys. I'd love it if you can use the chat box. I'd love it if you can try and guess what the golden rule is that I'm getting at. Now, I'll give you a hint. It's something that you don't do. So who would like to have a crack at what the golden rule is? I'm not sure if I can see the chat box. So David, I might rely on you to call out if there's been any chats come through.
Just put my glasses on, Ryan. Here we go. Never discount. Don't offer discount. Don't think that's the golden rule you're after, though, is it?
Okay, well, the golden rule, everyone, when you're in a competitive situation, the golden rule is that you never, ever bag your competition, okay? Because by putting down the competition, you run the risk of being seen as unprofessional and perhaps a desperate salesperson making a vain attempt to make yourself look good. Now, I think about politicians. I think they do that. And, you know, what we think about politicians, I probably don't need to go into that. So, yeah, whatever you do, don't do that. It's a little trap that you can fall into and a bad habit. Just avoid it at any costs for the reasons I just mentioned. Right, let's talk about these tactics. I'm excited to share these tactics with you. I think they're kind of secrets, and I think some people do some of them quite well. I've seen some of my colleagues do them, and it's quite impressive. So the very first thing you need to do is sort out your mindset. You need to believe that you're worth your fee. That might be harder than it sounds. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to believe you're worth your fee. So examples of this could be, think about all the excellent results that you've delivered for your landlords. Think about your experience. Think about the qualifications you have. Think about the money and the stress that you've been able to save your clients over the years. Think about that awesome tenancy tribunal result you got for your client last week. Think about last week how you rented a property without advertising it because you took someone from another property and moved them in. So tell yourself you're an expert in the field of property management. So when you start to reflect on those things, you'll rev yourself up and you'll say to yourself, yes, I'm worth full fees. So now that you've got your mindset sorted out, I think the second thing you need to do is to be sure and confident of what differentiates you or your agency as a property manager. Now, if you don't currently know what your points of differences are, how can you differentiate yourself from your rivals with the lower fees? If you don't have your points of differences mapped out, I suggest that you do this pretty soon. So if you've got a rental guarantee, that gives the client peace of mind. That's a point of difference. If your average time to rent a property is 12 days and the norm is 20, that makes your clients money, and that's a point of difference. If you only use professional photos for all your new listings, that's a point of difference. If you do marketing videos for all your new listings, that's a point of difference. If you're the business owner and you've got skin in the game and you don't need to go to a boss to get things signed off because you are the boss, you are the decision maker, that's a point of difference. If you're a member of the RPMA, tell the client what this means and that you're bound to a code of ethics. That can be a point of difference. If you've got an identical twin that works in the office with you in property management, that's even a point of difference. Whatever you do though, tie these points of differences back to benefits for your clients. So that may not make a lot of sense. So I'm going to show you how you don't do this and how you do this. So if your point of difference is that you don't charge fees for maintenance, an example of not linking this back to a benefit would be like this. Mr. Smith, we don't charge a maintenance fee, and that's a point of difference. Or does this sound better? Mr. Smith, we save you money because unlike a lot of other property managers, we don't charge for arranging maintenance on your behalf. This gives you peace of mind that we are completely transparent when recommending maintenance for your property because we've got nothing to gain from it. So I'm sure you can tell out of those two which sounds better just by linking the benefit. Now, in my opinion, there are a total of 4 benefits that landlords love to hear a property manager or a BDM or a property management business owner say to them. They're basically magic words. So again, I'm going to pass this over to you. I think there's 4. So the first one is making them money. They love to hear that. Another one they love to hear is providing convenience. And the third benefit they love to hear is being given peace of mind. And there's a 4th one. Would anyone like to have a shot through the chat box again at what the 4th benefit could be? So the first one was making money. Second was providing convenience. The third one was giving peace of mind. What's the other thing? What's the other benefit landlords love to hear from their property managers? And it was just mentioned before when I spoke about the better way of talking to the landlord. No chats coming up on my side, so no attempts at that, I presume. The 4th benefit is that they love to hear is saving them money. So if you can capture those things and keep them in your head and realize that owners want to hear that stuff, it'll really give you traction from a sales perspective. Right, another tactic that I like to use is to shift the focus away from your fees. So what you're trying to do here is reframe the conversation with the landlord. I've found the best way to have a client focus less on your fees and more on you and your value is to explain how much you can save your client. Now, how do you show a client how much you save them? Well, I do it with statistics. So explain your occupancy rate compared to the norm. Hopefully it's better. Don't do it if it's worse. If you've got an occupancy rate of 98% and the norm is 94%, make sure you show the client that this equates to 3 extra weeks of rent per year when using you as their property manager. Now that's $1,800 a year based on a $600 a week property. That's huge. Mention another thing you could do, mention the average time it takes to lease a property on your portfolio compared to the norm made up of your competitors. If you rent properties 10 days quicker than your competitors do, what does this work out to be in the landlord's pocket? Again, based on a $600 a week example, that's $850 extra in the landlord's pocket every time that you rent that property. Right, moving through the tactics some more. The next one is creating doubt. This is when you use phrases to hopefully create doubt in the minds of the landlords. One of my favorite sayings, or my go-to, if I'm in a situation where a landlord's being offered much cheaper fees than us, I say, Mr. Smith, be careful not to give your most valuable asset to the lowest bidder. What that means is a lot of the time the cheap fee agents, they're giving out cheap service as well. I think we can all agree that a bad property manager can really make create a lot of unnecessary cost and stress for a landlord. Right, so I'm going to keep going with quotes. This is one of my favorite quotes. So again, if you're in a competitive situation, this is something I like to say. If the other agent was quick to discount their fees, it demonstrates their poor negotiation skills, and they will be more likely to allow a discount on your rent when a tenant asks. So that's a personal favorite. You can also say things like, I've found that cheap fee agents, I've also found that cheap fee agents often have little or no training, no experience, high property manager turnover, little care from their managers, they're overworked, always in chaos and crisis mode, and are hard to get hold of. Now, we know this because the landlords that have switched to our company have told us. So there are a few things you can say. Now, moving on through to another tactic, one of my best tactics is being able to justify your fees. So if someone queries a particular fee, be sure that you've got a script to explain the fee. Now, the example I'm going to use is what we call our new tenancy administration fee, or we shorten it to admin fee. Now, I appreciate maybe all the attendees don't charge this, but you'll just have to, that's one less fee you have to justify, and you can work on a script for justifying your other fees. So this is the fee, this is the script that I use when a landlord says, oh, but my other property manager isn't going to charge an admin fee. So I set about explaining what ours is about, and it sounds like this. Mr. Smith, the admin fee is a set fee that covers the letting process at the beginning of the tenancy. It is a standard charge in property management, and it covers the likes of showing the property to potential tenants, reference checks and credit checking, tenant induction, and completing the entry report, as well as taking photographs and a high definition video. The admin fee also covers the process at the end of the tenancy. This can be when the majority of issues arise. It's when we also ensure that the property is returned to us in the same condition it was at the start of the tenancy, of course, taking into account field wear and tear. Now, in some instances, the end process can drag on for a long time, and in really bad cases, it can end up at the tenancy tribunal. Now, most of the time, Mr. Smith, you may not even be aware of what's going on. That's because we're taking care of it for you, and it's part of that admin fee you've asked about. The easiest way to think of the admin fee, Mr. Smith, is that it covers the start and the end of the tenancy. And that's the end of the script. So the client at the beginning, when he asked you about it, he might have been thinking that your fee was just a money grab, and to rent the property, just throw up an ad, someone comes in the door and you sign a tenancy agreement, then you go home and have a beer. We all know that's not the case, and we do a lot more work when we set up a tenancy. So you've just framed that fee up, that it covers the start of the tenancy, but it also evolved, and we started talking to Mr. Smith about dealing with issues at the end of the tenancy. So in his mind, he's thinking that fee now covers kind of the whole tenancy from the start to the end, which I think is a good way of conveying that fee. Now, I think Mr. Smith would be far more likely to accept that fee. Now he knows the effort that goes into it behind the scenes, He might even be thinking now that it's actually just cost recovery. Now, I want to take this a little bit further and link the justifying your fee tactic back to an earlier tactic. Okay, so once you've justified your fee, you can actually double down. So just after justifying the fee, you can link it back to an earlier tactic of creating doubt. So once again, justify your fee, and then you could say something like this. If the property manager isn't charging an admin fee to get your property rented, and I've just explained all the time and the work that goes into setting up a really good tenancy, could that property manager be cutting corners? So once again, it's just about linking it back to create that doubt that will enter the landlord's brain. Right, David actually mentioned this in the intro. It's about educating clients. So this is my favorite part. I like to position myself as someone who wants to help the client see the full picture when it comes to making a decision about choosing the agent. I think a lot of clients just look at the price. It's very one-dimensional and they go with the cheapest. So you've got to get in front of your client to have a discussion, to educate them that there's far more to that, and it's a 3D sort of equation. So the exercise that I personally do, I'm going to share with you today, and I do it usually within 15 minutes. It can be done over Zoom, or pre-COVID, it's done in person over a coffee at a cafe. What you want to say is you're going to mentor them into understanding the equation when it comes to property managers' charges. By using words like mentor, you're not coming across as a salesman, you're coming across as someone who's going to educate and help them. So we're about to dive into great detail about how I do this, how I educate and mentor the client. And hopefully it results in them signing your management agreement with full fees. So as promised, I thought the best way to convey some of the stuff to you guys would be with a real life example. So it's a couple of months ago now, earlier in the lockdown, I was introduced to a new potential landlord. She was a young woman who had just purchased her first rental property in Auckland, and she needed a property manager, obviously to get it leased because it was vacant, and then to manage it on an ongoing basis. I got in contact with her, and introductions were great and awesome discussion. Things went really well, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but I was like, I've got that. But after several days, I hadn't had my management agreement signed. So I was like, what's going on there? So I followed her up, and I got the news that she's been approached by the company that sold her the property, because they're a real estate agency and do property management. Not only that, but they're offering much cheaper fees. So yeah, that was a bit of bad news. The very first thing I needed to ask at that point is, have you signed a management agreement? Because if she had, I've probably lost her, but this conversation for another day. I'd try and get her, in 6 months' time and every 6 months after that, but never mind. So fortunately, the answer to that question was no, she hadn't signed a property management agreement with the competitor. So that was great for me. I knew I still had a chance to win that management off my competitor, even though they were undercutting me, if I could just have some time educating the client. So usually I'd go and visit the landlord, but it was lockdown and I'd just shaved my head and I was looking like a skinhead instead of a property manager. So we actually did it over Zoom later on the day. And it was on the basis that I'd mentor her into making the right decision for her, and there's more to choosing a property manager than fees. I was never, ever pushy. And I focused on saying, look, I just want to give you some information so you make the right decision for yourself. So always go with the education angle rather than the sales angle, because it'll work better every time, or at least that's what I've found. So let's look at the information I presented on that Zoom. And as you heard earlier, I do it on Excel. So presenting your case, we'll get to the Excel spreadsheet soon. So with this example, with this young woman, I wanted to point out that there are other things that she needs to consider. Really, the list could go on. You could talk about your experience, your training, your qualifications, who's in your team. But for this potential client, she had a financial background. So I personally tailored this to her and stuck to numbers. I let the numbers do the talking. So when you are coming to use numbers to put your case forward, it's a really good idea to present your case in Excel. That's what I find, because people take the information a lot better. The next tip I have is don't give them all the information all in one go. Otherwise they rush and they get overwhelmed and they beat you to the answers and stuff like that. So try and conceal certain blocks of your presentation, and I'll show you how I do that as well. So without further ado, let's look at the actual spreadsheet that I used for this client on the Zoom call. Now, the rival property manager, which was a very large company, they were offering what I consider to be very low fees, and these are shown in the left-hand side of the page under the blue writing property manager 1. So I was really surprised to see those fees. So 6.5% management rate. They don't have a new tenancy fee, like a leasing fee, like we do, and they weren't going to charge any routine inspections. So I hope everyone agrees with me, that's pretty cheap. What the client and I did is we just agreed on some sort of core numbers. We chose $500 per week as what the property would rent for, and we annualized that, which is $26,000 per year. And we also assumed an annual maintenance spend on that property of $2,000. Just a point, by the way, that rival property management company had appraised the property at $600 per week. Now, our appraisal, which I thought was really accurate, was $500. So not only are they really dropping their fees out there, but they're also giving inflated appraisals. So I'm not sure if that's happening in your neck of the woods, but it seems to be happening in Auckland. So what was our fee structure? We're on the right. We're called Property Manager 2, the red text there, Property Scouts. Our management rate was 7.9% plus GST. We're doing 4 inspections for our clients a year at $50 each, so that comes to $230 including GST. And we also charge a new admin fee, which I worked out to average out per year to about $383. Now, as you guys have already been able to see, on the surface of it, my fees are over $1,000 more expensive per year, or another way of cutting it, 53%. So it's any wonder that this client was thinking about going with the other property manager. So what you can do at this point is admit that you're higher in this area. Based on the information we're only looking at now, my fees are much, much higher. Now, by doing this, it shows that you've validated the way they were already thinking. And it also shows you've got nothing to hide and you're being completely transparent with the client. So then I said to the client, potential client, let's now model what the total cost of your property management would be. And you've got to emphasize those words, total cost. So I've got another piece of the spreadsheet that I revealed at this stage, and it's that bit in the green box. So, and by total cost, we would look at not only what the property manager's fees are, but we're going to bring into the equation other important factors like their maintenance fee, and on average, how many weeks of the year she could expect her property could be rented, us versus them. We would also look at how much time the property manager could spend on her property. So at this point, the numbers are starting to change for the client when we've brought in these additional factors. By factoring in the vacancy costs and also the commission on maintenance, all of a sudden there's a total cost showing, or I've got it as called a real cost in the spreadsheet. Now I've lost my place. Right, so even on the surface, before in the previous slide, it looked like we were 53% higher, and now we are marginally cheaper. So huge, huge change. Now, just so you know, I did talk the client through where I got our occupancy rate from. And I also advised that I'd done some research on Trade Me to determine and estimate what the other property manager's occupancy is based on how long their listings have been sitting vacant on Trade Me and other websites. It won't be perfect science, but it's a good estimate. What my research actually showed me is that the other property manager will have the property empty for around 2.5 per weeks per year. And I know from our stats in Palace that our occupancy rate is on average 99%. So what that means is over a 2-year period, that property will only be empty for 1 week out of every 2 years. It's an area that we're quite good on, if I must say so myself. Righto, this spreadsheet has a third element to it. So you don't just stop there. We all know that low fees, like what we've seen in this example, what it leads to large portfolio sizes. Property owners actually want to know their investment is being looked after and how much time is actually going to be spent on it. So I want to show you just how much time would be spent on this particular property using a property manager that would manage 190 properties, which I think would be the case in this example. So if you look at a typical week for a property manager, you take out some training, you take out some time for breaks, there's about 35 per hour, there's about net 35 hours left in a week, roughly. Now per week, that's 2,100 minutes. Now splitting those minutes across the portfolio of 190, that means that only 11 minutes per week can be spent on this client's property. It's not very much. Is it enough to do a good job? Don't know. To the right, we have our portfolio sizes, which are around 75, and it means that we can spend more time, nearly 3 times as much time on the client's property compared to the competitor. So this demonstrates to the client, and they really understand it because you've got the numbers there to prove it, that we spend more time, more care, we have less problems, we have higher occupancy, maintenance at their property is addressed faster, their tenants will be happier and will stay on for longer. And the landlord, the client, will actually have higher satisfaction. And I know for a fact, and so will you guys, that satisfaction leads to more referrals, and that's what grows your business, amongst other things. So now we've basically shown the client that not only you can spend more time looking after their property, but overall on a total cost basis, you are more cheap, you are more cost effective than that other agent. So that's the conclusion of the analysis. So now for a little bit of a summary of my webinar. Hopefully you haven't fallen asleep yet. So I just want to point out and revisit some of the key points that I mentioned during this webinar. So if your landlord wants to negotiate your fees, please don't panic. Discounting your fees should be the last resort, not the first thing you do. If you're getting good fees, often it means higher business income for you for less work, and that sounds really sweet to me. The golden rule, never bag your competition. Make sure you remember that one. And tactics for winning new business at full fees. Get your mindset right from the very beginning that you're worth full fees. Second, make sure you differentiate yourself in your business. Find out what those points of differences are and let the clients know about them, but also tie it into how that point of difference benefits the client. Explain how much you can save your client in money. That'll help take the focus off what your fees are, and it will put the focus on the value that you bring to the table. Make sure you've got scripts to justify your fees that you can rattle off so clients can actually understand why the fee exists and why we charge it and the consequences of other people not charging it. Make sure you show the client what they don't know and show them what the total cost is. Now that's what I just did on the spreadsheets there. So that's basically a sum up or a summary of all the things I've talked about today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed what I've spoken about and you take some of these things away. From now on, I'd probably like to move on to some questions to see if anyone's got any questions for me.
Well, while we're waiting for the questions, Ryan, that was awesome. And I think everyone would be silly not to actually have a look at the model of that spreadsheet that you used and adopt something like that for themselves. just to even realizes that some of the companies out there, especially in Auckland, you said 6.5 is cheap. I've just heard this week that somebody in one of the real estate property management divisions are offering 5% at the moment. So
wow.
it's incredible, isn't it? So, but the only point that I'd sort of like to add is that these companies, they focus on business development managers. So really, as part of that education process, you should be asking clients these three questions. Who is actually, you've come here, who's actually managing your property? Who's going to actually manage it? What experience have they got? And the key question that you raised, how many properties do these people have to care for?
Yep.
Because I worked out that I've met people in the industry, they're no longer in the industry, they've gone now in Auckland and Wellington, that were looking after 300 properties. And I worked it out that they actually only had about 4 hours per year to spend on the property on an average.
Something that I'd like to pass on, if you do lose a landlord to a company that's offering 4% or 5%, Kim just mentioned someone in Christchurch, 4%, don't stop there. Keep their details. It will only be a matter of time until that landlord gets disappointed because that cheap property manager has dropped the ball. So you should be putting those landlords that you've lost due to cheaper fees on your call list. Give them a call every 3 or 6 months. It will only be a matter of time until you get that management.
Right. We've got some questions here. Where do you find the normal occupancy rate? I think you mentioned, but it's worth mentioning again, Ryan.
Oh yes, so we pull it out of Palace. I personally don't pull it out. My office manager drops it on my table once a month. So if you guys would like the steps to get to it, I could certainly gather that together.
No, that's great. Where are we? Oh, here we are. Another question for you. What CRM system do you use?
In the past, I've used Lead Simple. It's spelled Lead Simple, but drop the E off the end. And what I liked most about Lead Simple is, believe it or not, there's so many CRM systems out there. What I liked most about the CRM by those guys was it's actually specialized for property managers. I found it really easy to use. I found it quite affordable. And to be honest, when I was running my Auckland property management company, there were 2 screens that I'd open every morning. I used 2 screens. The very first 2 screens I'd open and keep open all day long. Obviously, one was Palace and the other screen was Lead Simple. I'd always have my leads on one screen. That's how important I think a CRM system is to growing a business.
Okay. We've just had a follow-up one about the occupancy rate. The person was actually wanting to know, how do you find out others' occupancy rates, not yours?
Yeah, so that is a bit of a, it's not an exact science, that's for sure. You basically have to estimate it, but do it in a fair way. So the way you can estimate it is primarily through Trade Me. I look at certain properties and look at how long they've sat vacant, and I start to get a feel for that company's occupancy rate. And I also monitor maybe a sample of their properties to see how quickly they get taken down off Trade Me as well, because then you know it's been rented. And I just make a note of that. And after a while, you've built up 10 or 12 sort of examples, and you can start to get a clear picture of what their occupancy rate is.
Yeah, it's interesting. The accountants that I used to talk to, they actually allowed for their clients an occupancy rate in their budget of 3 weeks a year. So yep, that might be something that you could use while you're getting your data together.
We do a lot of work for in a company that sells investment properties, and yeah, in their forecasts for the clients, they do the same, David. They've got a 3, it could even be 4-week vacancy period. And so when they come to us or any other good property manager and they don't experience that, they're really stoked, because they're expecting much worse vacancy.
All right, another one question for you. This is great. There's more questions, I think, in all these webinars combined previously. And at what point in the process do you offer a discount, and what do you discount? Fees or sundry extras, and how much do you discount?
Okay, so look, you know how I said that discounting fees affects the value of your business? So if you're going to give a discount, what my advice to you guys is, whatever you do, don't make it a permanent discount, because that will affect the value of your business. What you can do to hopefully satisfy the client and give them a discount, but do it in a way that it doesn't affect the value of your business. And the way you do that is you give them something for free up front. I'm going to give you something that we do if we have to discount is we give them a free Healthy Homes report valued at $250, and it only costs us $40. So we've lost $40. But if we dropped our management rate by 0.5, we'd be losing cash flow every 2 weeks, and it would affect the value of our business. So I would strongly suggest you look at giving something free up front, even if it's, free property management for 3 months or something like that. Just try not to bring your management fee down, and try not to waive your fees, whatever you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
hopefully
good. Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I did.
Nick from Nelson, who's a property manager down in Nelson, he shot me a question because he had something come up this morning. He intended to come to the webinar, and I'll just try and remember what his question was. He said frequently when he pitches for business, he finds he's 0.5%, his management rate is 0.5% higher than his competitors. And he ended the question with, what can I do to combat that, Ryan? That was the question I was going to ask this morning. So I might put that question out there and also answer it. My advice for that sort of situation would be, I think landlords get a bit obsessed about the management rate. That a landlord in Nelson, well, the average rent in Nelson is $450 per week. So if Nick's going to pitch for that business, 0.5% will be bugger all per week to the landlord. But the landlord's going, oh, it's 0.5%, it's 0.5%. That landlord would have a point to have an obsession over 0.5% if it's about his mortgage interest rate and he's got a $2 million mortgage. But we're not talking about mortgages, we're talking about property management. So the average house in Nelson is $450 a week, and we're talking about 0.5% difference between Nick's rate and the competitor's rate. So that's only $2.25 difference. So I think it's really important to take the conversation away about what the percentage looks like and put it actually into dollar amounts. You could actually even go one step further. I've told you it's $225, Mr. Smith, but it's tax deductible. So the real amount is $1.50. And then what you can do is tie it into, make it seem really small by going, like, I can't even buy an ice cream for $1.50. Like, I used to say a cup of coffee, but cups of coffee have gone up to $5. So yeah, I can't even buy a stamp for that amount. And they're like, shit, you're right. Oh, that 0.5% doesn't actually mean a heck of a lot, does it? And you're like, mm-hmm. So yeah, there goes a question answered on behalf of Nick, who couldn't attend.
No, that's great. Well, Ryan, it's 5:02. It's gone a lot longer than we both thought. Here's another last question from Roger. We find although we have 4 different property management price options, the clients almost always go for the most expensive option, as we can philosophically justify that fee. No conflict of interest at maximum gap. Well, that's really a statement, Roger, and it's a good one. Thank you for your contribution. That's a great idea.
That's excellent, Roger. Well done.
Another one's just popped up. So it is just an ice cream. Why not suck it up as a PM? All right. So, okay. I think that's great. I think if any other questions, email Ryan, but we've come to the end of the presentation. I think you all thoroughly enjoy it. There's some really, really good keys in there. And that tool with the spreadsheet, for most people, if they're not doing that, we need to actually smack their hand big time. So really good. Thank you, Ryan, for the time that you put into this presentation, obviously.
You're welcome.
And thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to all the RPMA members. Last point I want to make, though, as an RPMA member, is don't forget that you've got that owner's member form to actually put in your listing presentation, which actually says all the benefits of what you are. That's a real benefit to people, is that they've actually got a certified residential property manager looking after their property that belongs to a professional organisation. So make sure that's always in there as well. All right.
If anyone would like to contact me, I've just put my email address in the chat box. So I'll be happy to take any other questions or provide any help. Okay, I might shut it down now. It looks like he's on the phone. So everyone, hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks again for listening to me jabber on. Yeah, if anyone wants anything from me, like the spreadsheet, please just drop me a line, like Ingrid. Thanks, guys. I'm going to close this off now.